Testing 1, 2, testing. Testing. Will you guys let me know in the chat if I sound loud enough? Thank you. You can hear me. That's wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, we'll give it two more minutes or so, and we're going to dive right in. You can hear me. Also, you can probably hear a baby in the background, possibly screaming. Maybe not. It's not me, I promise. That's okay. Babies scream. They do that all the time. They do lots of, well, it's kind of funny. Babies only do like 5 things. Screaming is one of them, crying is one of them, pooping and eating. I think that's the big comprehensive list, I would say, of things that I found that babies do now. Smile at you. That's been a new thing a little bit, though. All right. Okay, excellent. Well, I say let's dive in. We have 10 great RDs to be with us tonight. And as I kind of pull this away here, let's do my quick intro here. Good evening, folks. How is everyone? Welcome to RD Exam Ready Live. My name is Zach Caseberg. I'm a dietitian, but I'm also your tutor, your coach, your guide along the path to passing the RD exam. And my biggest passion is to help RDs and RDs to be just like all of you, to know more about this exam, to know more about how to pass, and how to be better test takers ultimately is what I really love to do and work on with the students that I'm working with here. So thank you all for being here tonight for this session. What we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be focusing on practice questions. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up a question for you. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to get started on your own. And then I'm going to dive in and kind of show you a little bit about how I would approach a question like something like this. The reason I love practice questions so much is because it's really the best thing that really transfers the most to exam day. Many of you study so hard, you spend so much time reading, reviewing, doing that. But ultimately, when it comes to exam day, we really need to prove what we're doing. And that's what my hope is for practice questions, that we can prove and apply what we've learned. And that's what's so nice about it. Now, I'll walk you through a little bit about how we'll do our questions tonight as we go through things. But the biggest thing I want you to remember is it is practice, okay? The purpose of this session is not to upset you, it's not to discourage you. It's meant to show you where there could be some deficiencies, where you're doing a strong on, what things you feel good on, and practice your strategy. That's what I'm looking for here is that you're practicing your test strategy, you're getting more comfortable with it so that you can take it into your exam day here. So let's all kind of say that that's going to be our big goal for tonight is just to say, hey, keep it positive and let's really see how we can pull this into exam day. So for the next hour or so, let's do some practice questions together, and I'm going to walk you through kind of how we do that process. So let me get loaded up here a little bit with our stuff, and we will dive in. If you don't have it handy, I would recommend getting a scratch sheet of paper, something to write with. In addition, I would want you to grab a calculator because you know I'm going to throw a couple practice questions that have some calculations going on tonight. Very good. So here's how we're going to handle this. What I've got here for you is I'm going to pop up a question for you, and I'm going to put a question just like this. And I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to get started on this question yourself. After about 30 seconds or so, I am going to start approaching it like I am you on exam day. Then we're going to flip over to the next slide and we're going to learn about, well, what was the best answer and why? That's going to be our plan as we go through this. You can use the chat to ask questions, and please do. If I'm not being clear about something or you need more clarification, you got to let me know as quickly as you can there. So I will keep a lookout for the chat. Just make sure you're communicating and let me know how I can help you. All right, RDs to be. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to start on this question before I start jumping in myself. So go ahead, start with your first question here as we go through it. What I'd recommend first is read that question nice and carefully. Make notes on your scratch sheet of paper of anything you think that is pertinent information, and then go through each answer to see if you think it's a good answer, a bad answer, or just not sure. Mm, 13 great artists to be in this chat here. I love it. Love it. Hey, everyone. Just starting out with our first question here, everyone. So take some time with this question, and then I'm going to dive in and show you how it's done a little bit. Sorry about that. All right, and you can always feel free to post your answer in the chat if you would like to, or hold on to it, but just make sure you're speaking it into existence in some way. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start approaching this like I'm you on exam day. So what I do first is I read the question and I like to make some pertinent notes that I see here. Specific things that I saw was toxic ammonia, urea, and then via the urea cycle here. So those are kind of the most pertinent things that I'm picking up from this question, is that those are the things that I need to focus on the most. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write A, B, C, and D, and I'm going to write it next to each answer. I'm going to use process of elimination to help me to say what answers I don't like, which ones I do, which ones I'm questionable on. So let's see what we think here. For A, the kidneys, when I think of kidneys and I think of the urea cycle, I kind of go, well, I know the kidneys have something to do with urea, but does it make sense that that's where the cycle would occur? Not so much. I would probably rule out kidneys off the bat just because I know it has something to do with urea, but I don't think it's where the cycle occurs. That seems way too late because the kidneys is normally where I'm excreting lots of things. So I would rule answer A out. B, the gallbladder. The gallbladder, I really think of bile for the gallbladder. And, do I really think of urea and protein? Not so much. Once again, in the gallbladder, I'm thinking of more like fats and breaking down of fats. So gallbladder would not be my best answer. I'm probably going to rule that one off the bat here too. C, the liver. We know the liver is very important to the body. It definitely detoxifies a lot of things, such as medications, vitamins, minerals, macronutrients all flow through the liver. I think the liver might be a good option for this urea cycle because it has so much control over so many things. I'm going to put a little check mark by the liver for right now because I like it as an answer. D, the pancreas. Again, pancreas does a lot of things. Do I think of ammonia and urea though? Not necessarily. I would rule out answer D, and I would say answer C is going to be my best fit, similar to all of you. Very good, everyone. I saw those answers in the chat. You were all doing awesome as we went out there. I saw that Becky mentioned here that Becky got rid of B and D, didn't think those were good answers, and really grabbed onto urea cycle and where it occurs. Very good. So now let's talk a bit about the urea cycle just to get more familiar there. Starting with first, I want to kind of mention here is about deamination. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want you to know where this ammonia even comes from. That seems important to me just to know where it comes from. It comes from deamination. When you have an amino acid, like here on the left, an amino acid can be then turned into other amino acids or to a keto acid, for instance. So, what you see here in this first box is taking an amino acid and turning it into a keto acid. And that keto acid I could then use to make other amino acids or all kinds of things. What breaks off of there, as you see, is that NH2 breaks off and it becomes NH3. That NH3 is known as ammonia here, folks. That is your ammonia that you see there. Now, ammonia is not a good thing. It's not a good positive thing for my body. Like we see here, it's toxic. We don't want toxic things in our life, right? So We need to process this ammonia into something else that our body can handle a little better. What we do is we take those ammonia. You don't necessarily need to know this piece for the exam, but we take two ammonias plus a carbon dioxide and we turn it into urea. We do this in the liver. The liver is where we control a lot of amino acid synthesis and this type of cycle. We turn it into urea, and now it's in a form that we can handle a little better. It's at that point that the urea would then get excreted out of the kidneys. So the kidneys do have involvement with urea, but they're not doing the urea cycle. They are excreting it out of the body, which we know the kidneys are responsible for, right? So that brings that question to a close there. This is a good moment where I'd say, hey, if I wasn't clear about something, post something in the chat there and let me know if I can clear something up for all of you, and I'd be happy to do so. I'll give you a couple seconds just to drop something in the chat to make sure I get that addressed for you. While I wait for those things, I just wanted to add this little piece here that remember, when we think of the kidneys and kidney disease, a lot of the times someone with kidney disease ends up with a very high blood urea nitrogen or BUN. So a BUN, the reason their BUN goes so high is because their kidneys are bad and then they build up the urea, right? So if my kidneys are bad and I cannot excrete this, the urea builds up. Versus another component here is if I have liver disease, then I'm not even able to make this ammonia into urea. So that's why people with liver disease tend to have very high levels of ammonia because they weren't able to undergo that process that is helping them to make ammonia into urea. All right. Didn't see any answers in the chat there, so it looks like we're all doing pretty well as far as that question goes. You are all so bright. Let's jump into our next question here. And I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to get started on your own, and then I'm going to jump in and help you out. Remember, on the exam, it's not 30 seconds per question. It's more like a minute to a minute and a half per question on average. But I'm just doing that to save time tonight because if I sit here for a whole minute and let you go through the question, you are going to be so bored of me so quick, and we don't need that. Great. Got a great group of students in our class here. Thank you all for being here. All right, so I'm going to start diving in a little bit into this question on my own a little bit, and let's see how we're going about it. I'm going to read carefully. What must be true for a food to be labeled low sodium? I'm going to write A, B, C, and D next to that, okay? So starting with A, I read A and I go, contains less than 5 milligrams of sodium per serving. Well, that seems really low. And I know I'm looking for like low sodium, but that seems like really, really low. I don't think A is a good fit. I think that might be a different designation of sodium, and I'm going to rule that one out. B contains no more than 35 milligrams of sodium per serving. Well, that could be my answer. I think I'm just going to put a little question mark by it for right now. C contains no more than 140 milligrams of sodium. Okay, I'm going to hold on to that answer. And D contains at least 25% less sodium than regular food. To me, I think this would be more of a reduced sodium type of thing. I think this would be more of like a reduced sodium instead of it being low sodium, so I would rule that one out. So for me, on exam day, if I'm looking at this, I'm stuck between answer B and answer C in this case. If it was a coin flip, 50-50 choice, I would just choose which one I feel best with. Now I'm going to choose the one that I feel is going to be the best fit for it, which I would probably say would be answer C. Seems like it's going to be my best fit, based on what I know about sodium classifications in servings of food. Let's see how we did here for RDs to be. Answer C will be the correct answer for this question here. If it was a 50-50 shot, remember, you were in a great spot. If you were right at that coin flip of between B and C or between B and A or something like that, you're in a good spot. When it comes to the exam, we really want us to get to those two answers because what that's going to do is it's going to increase your odds of getting more answers right. And that's what we need to get that score up. Especially if you're like 1 or 2 points away, like if you're breaking down these answers, you're going to get more right than not. So let's take a look here. I've got those classifications for you at the bottom. Answer A is something that is less than 5 milligrams of sodium per serving. This would be sodium free. And I know it doesn't actually seem sodium free because it has 5 milligrams in it, but it is in fact sodium free per the technical definition. One point I also want to say is that 5, when it comes to like low fat, sodium free, it's kind of 5 appears very often. So maybe hold on to that as a good thing for you. For instance, cholesterol free, I believe, is less than 5 milligrams of cholesterol. It's funny that it also matches up with sodium there. So, kind of a good little thing to keep in your back pocket. B contains no more than 35 milligrams of sodium per serving. This would be designated as very low sodium, so they had to make it extra complicated for you. Sorry about that. But that would be considered very low sodium in that example. C contains no more than 140 milligrams per serving. This would be considered low sodium per the definition. And D, as I said before, contains at least 25% less sodium than the regular food. That would be considered a reduced sodium food. So again, this is just going to be one that you just got to pay attention, got to know our information, have those numbers in your back pocket, and you will be covered. But is there any questions in the chat that you might have about this one, RD to be? What do you think? Does it seem like it's a pretty straightforward one? Do you need some extra help and clarity on that? What do you think? I'll give you a little time to drop something in the chat there. Looking great here, folks. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoy what we're doing tonight. Want to keep these going, want to keep more traction, get more RDs to see it as much as I can, just so I can help as many students as possible. Okay. Looks like we're doing pretty good. All crickets in the chat there. So it seems like you're all very eager for your next question. So I will keep a lookout if someone does post a question in there. But let's use our time effectively with this calculation question. Go ahead and take about 30 seconds on your own to get started, and then I'm going to start kind of breaking it down a little bit myself here. Oh, thanks for the likes, folks. Appreciate it. It helps. Feels ridiculous, but it helps. All right, so very good. Hopefully you've just taken a little time to get at least started on this calculation a little bit. I'm going to start highlighting some of the big pertinent information that I think I would pay attention to. I got 8,000 students during the lunch period, open from lunch 10 a.m. to 2:30, 1,250 seats in the dining center. And then my biggest key point, which always usually comes at the end, what are we looking for? What is it asking me to find on these? All right. So as I would get started with this formula here, what I'm going to look at first is I want to know the seat turnover over this whole lunch meal period. That's what I would start with first. So during this lunch, it says what's the seat turnover per hour, but I want to start with just what's the seat turnover for the whole lunch period. So if I want to do that, I would take first how many total students or guests that I have, and I would divide that by how many seats I have in this place. So it would kind of look like this. I got 8,000 students or 8,000 guests, and I would divide that by how many seats I have in the whole place. So that was 1,250 seats. When I do that, you didn't think I could do that in my head, did you? When I did that, that would be 6.4 seats, okay? Or excuse me, 6.4 is the turnover. So what that kind of means is what we're saying is in that whole period from 10 a.m. to 2:30, if you took one seat, one like the seat I'm sitting in right now, if you looked, it turned over in that whole period about 6.4 times, okay? Someone came in, sat down, ate their lunch, and left. That happened about 6.4 times. Now, what it's asking for here is a key point is it says, what's the seat turnover per hour? We just got the seat turnover for the whole lunch period. Now let's go to per hour. So if I want to do that, I'm going to take my 6.4 turnover and I'm going to divide it by how many hours there were in that lunch period per hour, right? So I'm going to do it on my hands because it works for me. 11 a.m., 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2:30. So it was 4.5 hours is the amount of time that it took for this. So I'm going to do 4.5 hours. 6.4 divided by 4.5 would be 1.4222 repeating. So let's just call it 1.4. My best answer, I would say, would be answer B as in boy in this case, as our best answer for seat turnover per hour. Let's flip over and let's make this a little cleaner for everyone, just so we all know how this works here. And remember, use that chat. Let me know how I can help you, especially with a calculation, folks. I want to help you as much as I can. So seat turnover per hour, as I said, what I want you to start with is just break it up in 2 points. Start with your seat turnover. So if you have your seat turnover, you're going to take the number of customers you served in that whole meal period, which was 8,000. You're going to divide that by the number of seats. That was 1,250. When we did that, we ended up with 6.4. Then you're going to take your seat turnover of 6.4 and divide by how many hours there were in the meal period, which was 4.5. And I ended up with 1.4 seat turnover per hour. So in 1 hour, about 1.5 people came in, sat, ate, and left in that case. Get my little window out of here. Whoops. Come on now. Why 4.5 and not 4.3? So what I would kind of remind you of, Becky, is remember 2:30, 30 minutes is 1/2 of an hour, right? So when it goes to 2:30, it would be 0.5 of an hour, whereas zero point 0.3 would be like something a little bit less than that. So the reason we would do 0.5 is because 2:30 is saying 1/2 of an hour in that case. Move myself. Maybe I'll move myself up here. Cool. Very good question, Becky. Other questions, students, how did you feel on this? Was this one, I know it's a little bit quieter in the chat a little bit, so that always happens with calculations. So if you feel that way, remember, you're not alone. There's another student in here that feels that exact same way as you do right now. So talk to me. Let me know in the chat, how can I make you feel more comfortable with this? Did this make sense? And would you go about it any other way? Very good work, everyone. I liked it. Yeah, nice. I'm glad you all enjoyed that question. Good, good. You're feeling great on it. It takes a little time to get started on this type of question, I know, because you're like, what do I need to use? When do I need to use it? But what I'm trying to do here is just kind of show you to break that down there. Okay. Just simplified. What do we need to know? Here's how we do it. That's all I need you to know for exam day is that type of stuff. Very good, everyone. Okay. I will keep a lookout in the chat for more questions, but let's bump over to this next question here for us. Giving you about 30 seconds to get started on it. Good, Laura. Well, if you enjoyed that, Laura, it was just for you. Okay. I knew you needed it. Not needed it, but I know you wanted to keep getting some exposure with that. Okay. Looking good, folks. I'm going to start getting started a little bit on this question on my own. Common side effects to a patient taking Orlistat would include A, B, C, and D. Okay, let's really use process of elimination here, folks, to see what our best answer is going to be. So starting with A, hypoglycemia, arrhythmia, and sweating. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fall back to what I know about Orlistat. And what I know, which is not a lot, is that Orlistat is used for weight loss. That's one thing I know about it. It's used for weight loss. So I'm going to keep that in my mind as I go through this. Hypoglycemia, arrhythmia, and sweating. Maybe I'll put a little question mark by that. I don't really know. I mean, low blood sugars, arrhythmia, sweating for weight loss, maybe, but I'm just a little bit questionable on it. I want to see right here. Good, very good in the chat. I got people on here just letting me know it's a weight loss medication. You're all so bright. For B, xerophthalmia, confusion, and reduced appetite. We will talk through those terms, by the way. I just want to give that a minute. For xerophthalmia, confusion, and reduced appetite, reduced appetite fits for a weight loss medication, but the other two symptoms, I don't think that's a good fit. So I'm going to rule that one out in this case. I'm going to get rid of B. C, neural tube defects, arrhythmia, and pancreatitis. Wow, we're all over the place with this. It just doesn't seem like a good fit to me. I would get rid of this one. It just doesn't seem to fit. We got the neural nervous system, we got the arrhythmia, we got the heart, we got the pancreas. We're all over the place. I don't think that's a good fit. D, steatorrhea, gas, and stomach pain. Okay. So if I'm stuck between A and D, hypoglycemia, arrhythmia, and sweating, or steatorrhea, gas, and stomach pain, I feel as though my best fit is going to have to be D in this case. A, I was very questionable on, but D seems to fit much better with what this medication does. I feel D is going to be my best fit. I'm going to place a check mark by it, and that is going to be my best answer for that one, folks. So I've got some really bright arties to be just letting us know in the chat. Stephanie gave us a great idea here about stat as statorrhea or steatorrhea here. So let's start with the best answer here and just explaining that a little bit here. Very good, everyone. So for D, steatorrhea, gas, and stomach pain. Let's talk about what Orlistat does here in the bottom. So Orlistat, what it does is it inhibits pancreatic lipase activity. That's the long way to say it decreases your pancreas ability to digest fats. You're not digesting fats as well. You're not absorbing fats as well. And so this is what's kind of occurring in this case is you're just you're just pooping out all the fats that you normally would be absorbing. So you're not getting as much calories from it here. The side effects of that is, of course, GI cramping, diarrhea, gas, and then pay attention to this last point: reduced absorption of fat soluble vitamins. Well, why is that occurring? It's occurring because you have decreased amount of lipase lipid enzyme in your GI tract. So it makes total sense that if you associate pancreatic lipase with orlistat, you're automatically going to think of fat soluble vitamins and fats in general. And gosh, how did I forget one of my favorite side effects in here, which is steatorrhea? Hard one to spell, sorry. I always spell it wrong the first time. Steatorrhea is when you end up with fat in your stool. And this makes total sense, right? Because you're taking a medication that's inhibiting your ability to break down fats. Thus, the fats end up in your stool. Steatorrhea there. Another key point down here that I mentioned, I was looking at my textbook before this, and orlistat is the only approved medication, key point there, for childhood obesity. So it's the only one approved for childhood obesity. I don't think GLP-1s would be indicated, but yeah, I don't think a GLP-1 would be prescribed to a child at all. That seems like way too high of risk of hypoglycemia and other issues. So that wouldn't be a good fit there. So for C, neural tube defects, arrhythmia, pancreatitis, none of these would fit well with orlistat. For B, I just want to go over what xerophthalmia is. Xerophthalmia, okay? Xerophthalmia will be dryness in your mouth, okay? Just remember that there. Confusion, reduced appetite. And for A, just wouldn't be a good fit there. A lot of questions in the chat about how do we remember these medications? Well, that's a good question. One big piece to medications, I would say, is exposure. Getting exposure to these over and over, not every day, just probably every week, is very helpful for retaining this information. Come up with fun things like, Stephanie was glad to share with us that stat and steatorrhea, how Stephanie associates those two things together. So that's a really nice thing for medications too, is if you can find a little key point in your head that connects well with it, it's going to help you when you see it on the exam. So, um, like things that I'll think of. Here's another example, like long acting insulin, Lantus. I think of L and long. I think of long and L. That's an example that I think of for that instance. Um, I'll do the same thing with some type of like diuretics, for instance. I'll think of loop diuretics and I'll think of the loop of Henle, which is in my kidney, which is how we get rid of a lot of our sodium and water and things like that. So I'll think of loop diuretics and I'll think of the loop of Henle and how the loop of Henle is getting rid of sodium and getting rid of water all the time. Really, with medications, like I said, it's going to be exposure. Flashcards can be helpful. I know it doesn't work for everyone. I definitely was not a flashcard person when I was in my taking my master's or undergrad, but I did get some value out of them when I was doing them for the exam too. Okay. Good. All right, everyone. Yes, good, Stephanie. Yep, like Lasix, exactly. Yep, Lasix is an example of a loop diuretic, so that's why I always think of there for like loop of Henle in my kidneys, getting rid of sodium, getting rid of water. And if you get to join me more, or if you get to follow the podcast, which I hope you are, check out the RD Exam Ready podcast. I'll probably have an episode on medications in the future. I don't want to do it yet just because I want to take a proper amount of time to prepare for it. But yep, that could be very helpful to certainly do, is to check that out and just see as we do more questions, get more exposure there. All right, everyone. Let's do another one here. Let's talk about iron. So go ahead and take 30 seconds or so with this question, and then let's look together. I'm going to get a little bit started on this one while you are all working on it. Which of the following is false regarding iron and its absorption? Starting with A. Ferritin is the iron storage component, whereas transferrin is the transport protein of iron. That feels like a true statement. That feels all pretty good to me. I'm going to rule out A because remember, I'm looking for what is false when it comes to iron. So that one's out for me. B. Absorption is enhanced by vitamin C, phytates, and polyphenols. Ooh. Okay, I want to hold on to B. C. Heme iron is more bioavailable than non heme iron. That seems like a true statement. D. Lower iron absorption is observed in elderly populations. Well, I'm a little questionable maybe on D at this moment. Maybe I can't retrieve as much information as I need. And remember, folks, I'm looking for what's the false statement here. Okay, so right now I am between B and D in this case, B and D. Okay, so if I had to choose between B and D, I'm feeling like B is my best answer. And here is why. Absorption is enhanced by vitamin C. Vitamin C does help my absorption of iron. However, phytates, phytates do not help absorption of iron. They decrease absorption of iron. Polyphenols do not help absorption of iron. They decrease absorption of iron. B is going to be our best answer here, folks, because of that. Vitamin C, I'm going to put a little green line underneath it. Vitamin C is good. Green means good. Vitamin C helps to absorb iron. However, phytates do not. Phytates, which are found in usually our whole grains, they inhibit iron absorption. They do not help the absorption of iron. They inhibit it, they decrease it. Polyphenols, such as tannins that you find in tea and coffee, do not help iron absorption. They decrease iron absorption, actually. So I put this in here because I'm trying to trick you. I want to trick you as much as I can and try to trick you. So phytates will be those whole grains. Polyphenols will be, some of those things we've talked about, like pigments that are out there. Tannins and tea is the big one that can decrease absorption of iron in that case. The rest of these, A, C, and D, are all true things when it comes to iron. A is a true statement. C, we know is a true statement. And in D, we do see lower iron absorption in elderly populations. We see less iron absorption, and that happens for a few reasons. The primary reason would be because we have less gastric acid in our stomach, and iron really loves acid. It loves acid. And so, in elderly populations, when they have less acid in their stomach, they're having less iron absorption because of that. Plus, your GI tract, as you get older, it just doesn't work as well. So, you're going to absorb things a little bit less. Now, I love what Stephanie mentioned here. Maybe phytates fight iron. Sure does, Stephanie. You're very great there. They definitely do. But what I want to actually check here is, do we all understand why B was our best answer here? Do we all kind of notice and understand why that's our best answer? It's very important to me that we know why. Good. Okay, just giving ourselves a few more moments in the chat, making sure everyone feels nice and good on this question. Awesome. All right, so we all understand why we came to that answer. That's good. It's very important to me. Perfect. All right, students, we're about halfway through the questions I wanted to do. We are going to go a little late tonight. So Michelle, you were kind of asking about why that is? Yeah, so let's talk about this for a minute. So, Michelle, just when it comes to this question, Michelle Evans 383. So, what I put here is for the vitamin C, remember, vitamin C is good. Vitamin C is a good thing when it comes to iron. Iron and vitamin C, they love each other to death. But what the problem is in answer B is that phytates, which are found in whole grains, like I said, they decrease iron absorption. Okay. They decrease it. They either compete for it or make it not as bioavailable. So that's why phytates is a false statement. Polyphenols, like found in tannins and tea, also decreases iron absorption. So again, those are false statements that I have there in red, and that's why B is my best answer here. Good. Yeah. So when it comes to heme and non-heme, as we see in the chat here, a lot of us mentioning here, heme iron is what we find in animals. Okay, so that'll be animals, if you can read that at all. Animals, like beef. Beef has a lot of heme iron. I also want to mention that animal products, they have heme iron and non-heme iron, but it's mostly heme. I don't know if that makes total sense, but within an animal product, you have both heme and non-heme, but in a plant, you only have non-heme, right? So in plants, you only have non-heme iron in that case. But like beef, for instance, has a ton of heme iron, but it's got a little bit of non-heme iron in that case. Good, just catching up in the chat here. Good. Yep, nice, Laura Ann. So you kind of came to your best answer because you knew all the rest of those were true statements. Excellent. That's great. Shows how knowledgeable you are. Good, Michelle. We're getting back on our phytates here. Mahalia, thanks for jumping in there with their explanation. Yeah. Yep. And so if you're like, some of the exam questions are like this, that's what my goal is. I'm trying to trick you. I am trying to make you better at recognizing these things so that you're much better able to apply it to exam day. Very good. All right, let me jump to my next one here, folks. Just as I was going to mention again, we are going to go a little late tonight. Hope that's cool with you. I want to get through at least 10 questions here, and we got about 15 minutes. So if you're all okay to hang late, please do. If you can't hang late with us after about 15 minutes or so here, then remember, just come back, watch it on the channel. It's all going to be in that live section. So don't feel like you have to lose sleep over me. You can always watch it tomorrow. You're all very, very bright. Biggest group we've had so far, by the way. Love it. Love all of you being here, joining us. Okay, well, I don't have a 24-month-old child. I'm much younger than that, but let's see what I can do for this one. A 24-month-old child would be considered safe to consume blank as a snack. Okay. So really, I automatically know we're looking at more of a choking hazard type of question, maybe an allergen question, but mostly choking hazards what I'm looking at here. For A, popcorn. Whew. Well, popcorn, I already know. It's kind of one of those that always comes to my mind that I'm like, popcorn's a bad thing. Well, it's really good. I love it. I had it today. But it's not going to be safe for a child. It's going to be a choking hazard. So I'm going to rule popcorn out in that case. B, marshmallows, or marshmallows, you might call it. Marshmallows also, depending on the size, you picture how big they can be, the classic ones I think of. And yeah, that seems like a very big choking hazard to kiddos. I don't think that would be a safe one for a kid. I think they're going to really choke on that quick. C, thin deli turkey. I'm going to hold on to that for right now. And then raw apple slices. Yeah, those raw apple slices, once again, I just feel like depending on the size of the apple and how thin you slice it, I just feel like it's probably going to potentially get stuck in their airway. So if I was stuck between C and D, I would just say which is safer? By far, I feel like thin deli turkey is going to be a safer option for swallowing compared to raw apple slices. Let my daughter get a little older and then we'll see. We'll test it out. Hopefully not. Okay, so yes, answer C is going to be our best fit here, folks. Just to read through kind of your choking hazard list here that I made for you. Things like gum, hard candy, hot dog slices, raw apple slices, especially very thick ones, marshmallows, nuts, peanut butter, popcorn chips, pretzels, raw carrots, raw celery, whole beans, and whole grapes. Those are all going to be things that are going to be potential choking hazards. Probably it's not even a comprehensive list, but this gives you an idea of what types of things are choking hazards in this case. Would you add anything else to this? Would you remove it? I remember I had a parent the other day tell me that they're like, I used to give my kid raw, like a big stalk of celery just to chew on when they were teething. And I was like, you did? I didn't really question them, but I was like, you did? Doesn't that seem like a crazy choking hazard? Like to have raw celery? But again, different parents, different comfort levels. What's going to happen? Probably nothing in that case, but that's just something that really surprised me when I saw that. Okay. Anything else you would ask about this question? Does it seem pretty straightforward? I believe it does. Again, all you need to take from it is what's going to be my choking hazard list. Keep those items in your back pocket and you are going to be covered when it comes to these types of questions. Raisins. Ah, raisins. That's a great one. Thank you. That's an excellent one to share. That's great. Especially because it's so sticky, like it could just get caught back there a lot of the time. It's similar to like that of like a cashew or a almond. It could just get caught right there. Great idea. Good, everyone. Okay, since we're all feeling good on this question, it's pretty much crickets in the chat. Let's go ahead and let's use our time effectively to talk about this Olympic Village. All right, let's see what's happening in this question. All right, so I'm going to start diving into this question to get caught up with all of you. A breakout of gastroenteritis has occurred in the Olympic Village. Oh no. Specialists find that all sick athletes consume minced beef and pasta that had been improperly heated for service. This is most likely, an occurrence of A, B, C, or D. For A, Listeria monocytogenes. I never know if I say that right, but that's what I'm going for. For listeria, what I really think of is things like deli meats. I think of hot dogs. Um, I think of some, different cold or hot, items that would fit there. I don't really think of minced beef and pasta. I would think I'm going to rule out that as an option just because I don't classically think of those types of foods, and I feel like they would push me towards other foods there. B. Clostridium perfringens. I think the gastroenteritis in the foods might fit pretty well with this. I'm going to put a little check mark by B, but remember, I can always come back to it and go with a better one too. C. Giardia duodenalis. Giardia duodenalis, that's going to be a parasite that a lot of people get when they drink the water in different countries. So I don't think, although they are at the Olympic Village, I don't think it was the Giardia because I feel like that would have been killed off in the cooking process. Even though it was improperly heated for service, maybe I'll just put a question mark by it for right now. Clostridium botulinum, I don't think that's going to be a good fit, mostly because with botulism, I always think of a lot of those anaerobic foods, canned meats, things like that were improperly canned, and I would rule that one out for that one there too. So if I'm looking between B and C, I would say B is going to be my best fit in that case, and that's the one that I'm going to choose. I agree with many of you here too. Very nice, everyone. So here's our little list that I threw together some quick symptoms, some quick foods a little bit. For Listeria, symptoms would include things like nausea, vomiting, meningitis that we see normally occurs with pregnant women, neural tube defects, things like that, right? For foods, this is going to be seen in things like unpasteurized dairy, soft cheese, lunch meats, hot dogs. Those are things that would fit there too. For our best answer, Clostridium perfringens, that would be things for symptoms that'd be like diarrhea, abdominal pain, nausea. In some foods, it just mentioned that the types of foods is that foods that are stored improperly or cooked improperly. I see a lot of us jumping in here with buffet foods, cafeteria foods. Definitely could see it in those types of foods too. I very much agree with you. Giardia duodenalis, vomiting and bloody diarrhea is very, very common. Of course, some nausea we'd probably see. And I always mention water. Water is what I always think of there. Clostridium botulinum, that's going to be symptoms of double vision, dysphagia, aphasia, difficulty talking, nervous system issues. In the foods it's going to be associated with would be like anaerobic, low acidity type foods is what you're going to see there. So Stephanie asked about for Listeria, what are the raw foods included in there? Stephanie, kind of one thing might be like raw dairy. That's kind of one piece too, is like those unpasteurized dairy products. Off the top of my head, I can't think of necessarily which raw foods, but like there's been Listeria breakouts of lettuce, for instance. There's been Listeria breakouts of lettuce. We've not had it at my work, for instance, but we've had recalls on foods that there was a recall on a product that we don't buy, but it had Listeria, and that was lettuce that it occurred to. So I think Stephanie, it could really occur with lots of raw items there. Mhm. Good. Mhm. All right, good questions here, folks. Right now, off the top of my head, I can't remember our cafeteria bug right now. If I had my list right in front of me, I would, but I'm going to hold off on speaking on that and just let you do your own research at the moment with that. Or if someone in the chat wants to hop in for that question, please do. It's like there's so many of them. Yeah, I usually say Giardia is like the traveling bug. Sorry, folks. Hold on 1 second. Thought I had a textbook nice and handy for about these. I do have a million textbooks on them, but I have one specifically I was thinking of. Keep a lookout for more foodborne illness talk. We'll certainly do that in a future podcast for sure. Um, yeah, but for now, here's just a little list of what you need for today. Great job on that question, everyone. Very good. Okay, very good, folks. Let's do 8, 9, and 10. Let's do 3 more questions here, and then we'll wrap up our night. Give you a little time to get started on this question, then I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my books really quick. Mhm. Okay, that's all right. All right, folks. So hopefully you're doing pretty well on this here. Is okay. Thank you, Lorian. Okay. So let's go and let's get started on this question. Calculate the food cost per meal for a party of 1,250 people. There were $23,000 in food purchased for the party. 1,850 of food was removed from inventory, and 5,890 was spent on labor. Okay, so it's telling me calculate the food cost per meal. So I'm going to take my food cost divided by meals. Okay, so let's look at this. Which numbers do I need to use? Which ones do I not need to use? To me, 5,890, I do not need to use that. That is because that is going to be the labor cost, and it's only asking about food cost here. So I'm going to rule that one out there. I'm not going to need that 5,890. So in this case, let's just focus on what we got for the food cost. I've got my 23,000 plus 1,850. When I add those two up, I ended up with $24,850. That's how much I spent on food for this event. Then I'm going to divide by how many meals that we served, or how many people we served in this case. So I'll do divided by 1,250. And once I calculate that, I ended up with 1988 per meal. Or answer B in that case is my best fit. So let's hop over here, just get that nice clean calculation here. Like I said, you're only going to focus on the food cost. What I was trying to do is trick you all. Remember, I'm trying to trick you. It's not personal, I promise. This labor cost, this is me trying to trick you. Do not be tricked by this. We must read questions carefully. Food cost, that's all it's asking for, folks. Let's not make it complicated. You do not need that labor in that case, and you need to ignore it. So for the food cost, you're going to start with, like I said, you're going to do your calculation to end up with 2,000, come on now, 24,850. No, Priscilla, the 1850 is still in it, I believe. Yeah, 1850 is still in it, Priscilla. We're still keeping that there. Another note I want to make here, folks, is whenever you see per means divided by. Okay, that's what per means. So miles per hour, miles divided by hours. That's what we're seeing there too. So every time it says per, food cost per meal, labor cost per meal, that's always going to be divided by. No formula to remember there. It's right there for you. So do your 24,850 divided by how many meals. And when we do that, you end up with 1988. Okay. All right, folks. So what questions did you have about that? Does that seem like a nice, clear calculation for you? What I'm trying to do, like I said, I'm trying to trick you. Don't be tricked by me. You can do this. Do not be tricked by me. Only focus on what the question is asking you for, which in this case was the food cost per meal here. Okay, good, good. I'm going to just leave the chat open for a few more seconds just to see if any more questions roll through. Oh, I see. I'm so sorry about the confusion there. Okay. So, what it's saying here, when it says removed from inventory, I want you to imagine that I went into my coolers, my freezers, my dry storage, and I used food from my inventory. So I was saying that I purchased right off the bat, I used $23,000 to buy all the food for the event. And then I had to go to my storage and grab an additional 1,850 and pull it into that, right? So it wasn't that you're deducting it from the 23,000, it was that. Stephanie asks, when would I add the labor in a question like that? Well, Stephanie, if I rephrase this and said, what was the total cost per meal? Total cost, and I gave you these numbers, Stephanie, you're going to use that labor cost in that instance. But in this case, I only specified food cost per meal. That's the only one I specified. So if it's just the food cost, you need to ignore that labor cost. You don't include it here because it didn't ask you to do it. Okay. All right, everyone. Just for sake of time, I'm going to keep rolling in this. We got two more questions to go through here before we end our night. Thanks for staying late with us here, folks. So to kind of get started on this question with you, I'm going to put A, B, C, and D there. Beta oxidation is the process of A, converting glycerol to new glucose. That doesn't seem like that's going to be a very good fit. Glycerol to new glucose doesn't fit with beta oxidation. I'm going to rule out answer A there. B, converting fatty acids to acetyl CoA. I kind of like that answer. I'm going to hold on to that. C, conversion of fatty acids to ATP. I'm going to put a little question mark by that. And D, formation of a triglyceride from glycerol and fatty acids. D kind of sounds to me like you're doing lipogenesis to D. I don't think D is going to be a good fit there. That doesn't sound like what beta oxidation would be. So now, folks, we're stuck between answer B and C. It has something to do with fatty acids here, but do you know what your best answer is? Our best answer in this case, beta oxidation, is the process of taking fatty acids and making them into acetyl CoA. Making them into acetyl CoA. That is what you are doing in beta oxidation there. Beta oxidation's tough because guess what? You don't talk about beta oxidation every day. It's maybe been years since you even thought of the words beta and oxidation together. But let's talk about what beta oxidation is. I have this crude drawing here of what it is. On your left here, this is a fatty acid. Okay, so you have this fatty acid tail, right? This is my tail. It's a bunch of carbons with some hydrogens attached to it. That is what a fatty acid is. Now, what I want you to remember is that in beta oxidation, what you're doing is you're taking that fatty acid and you are making it into acetyl CoA. You're making it into acetyl CoA. And I'll ask you, chat, what am I doing with acetyl CoA? Where is acetyl CoA going after this point? Let's see if you can tell me in the chat. Now, along the way, as I turn that fatty acid into acetyl CoA, I'm kicking off some NADHs. I'm kicking off an FADH2. If you have listened to the podcast, you probably know my analogy that I've said here, which is that NADH and FADH2, those are like checks that I'm going to take to the bank to cash in later. So they're checks I'm going to take to the bank to make into ATP. They're not ATP yet, but they're going to become it. Acetyl CoA itself is going to go to the Krebs cycle. You got to know what the Krebs cycle is. I can't go through all of the Krebs cycle tonight because it would take us another hour. But acetyl CoA is going to go to the Krebs cycle to then be used to make energy later on. Not yet, but later on. So the reason that C is not a good answer is because you are not taking those fatty acids to make them into ATP. That's not what you're doing. There is no ATP being generated here at all. What you are doing is you are taking it to make it into acetyl CoA, which then goes to the Krebs cycle and then would go to the electron transport chain. That's what you're trying to do. Remember, it all flows back to the Krebs. It all comes back to the Krebs cycle a lot of the time. And then the Krebs cycle is then going to make those checks that we take to the bank. Make sure if you have not checked out my episode on the RD Exam Ready podcast, specifically when I do like biochemistry, talking through those things, I go all through this stuff, and we'll probably have lessons again in the future about it because you could talk endlessly about biochem. But what I want you to remember is it all comes back to acetyl CoA, which then goes to the Krebs. This is how you're making energy out of your stored fat and the fat you eat in your diet. All right, folks. I won't be able to get to all your questions tonight, but I've got one more to finish our night here, and it's a nice little food service one. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds or so on your own to work through this, and then I'm going to jump in with my best answer here. Once again, thank you for being here, folks. Appreciate it. Like, subscribed to the RD Exam Ready channel if you haven't, just so you can know when we're going to do future videos. I post the podcast on there. We're doing these lives so you can get more free content from me to help you with passing in the future. You could reach out to me. You could message me on Instagram if you want to, if you just have questions about stuff or need some advice. I get a lot of messages through there. So if I haven't gotten to it yet, remember, I will get to you there. A food service operation wants to purchase cooking equipment that allows them to fry, simmer, steam, saute, or grill a variety of foods. The best equipment that would allow for this would be A, B, C, and D. Combo oven or a combi oven. This oven could do kind of like a roasting process. It could do convection, conduction. Would it do much for frying though? I don't think really a combo oven or a combi oven would really do a lot of frying. It doesn't really have that ability of frying things. It's more going to bake and roast. So to me, A is going to be out. I don't think it's going to be able to do that. B, steam jacketed kettle. Okay, this could be an answer here, but a steam jacketed kettle, it's this big kettle like this, right? It's kind of like a big metal kettle. How am I going to grill in that kettle? That seems a little difficult to do. If it's in this big kettle, how am I going to grill something in it? It's not going to be able to really touch the sides. I actually think B is not going to be a good fit because I don't think in a steam jacketed kettle I could really do much grilling in there, for instance. C, an 8-burner cooktop, which would just be a big burner cooktop. That's a maybe. D, a tilting skillet. I'm going to put that as my best answer here. A tilting skillet will be the most versatile piece of equipment that I can use. At the food service operation that I work at, we use tilt skillets all the time for cooking all different types of things. What I'd recommend you do is check out a picture of a tilt skillet. And what it is, it's kind of like an open box. So it's like a big rectangular skillet. You know, it's kind of like you had a flat top grill with really high edges. And what this allows you to do is I can cook 50 chicken breasts on that tilt skillet and grill them on it like it's a flat top. I could fill that tilt skillet up to the brim with oil, maybe not the brim, but very high with oil, and I could deep fry in it. I could simmer things. I could steam things, I could saute things, all in that tilt skillet. It's going to be the most versatile piece of equipment that can be used, and it would be our best fit for this answer here, folks. All right. Very good, everyone. Very good. All right. Well, I have loved being in this session with you all tonight. You all brought your A game as always. Remember, like, subscribe, check out the channel, check out the podcast, message me over Instagram if you have questions, and please join us for these upcoming lives. I'm trying to do them about every 2 weeks or so just to help maintain my sanity and still give something back to all of you. Really appreciate all of your time. And as always, happy studying to you, RD to be. Keep pushing on. You got this thing. Talk soon.